Welcome. We're admitting people now, and I want to say welcome to our fourth and final Lunch and Learn webinar series sponsored by NYSERDA for the spring and summer of 2025. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. My name is Krista Downey. I'm the ECO 2.0 project manager at Launch New York. And before we dive into hearing from our incredible lineup of speakers, I want to take a minute to go over some important housekeeping items. So we ask you to keep yourselves muted until we open the floor for audience questions at the end. With that said, we do want this webinar to be interactive. So please do, when we open it for questions, share your questions in the chat or feel free to raise your hand and speak up and ask your question. We want to engage everyone. And we did take into account the questions that you submitted in advance. So we're excited to answer those and share along those lines. So following the webinar, we will share the presentation slides and any additional resources discussed. We will upload this recording with the others to our YouTube channel where you can review the entire series if you haven't yet. And so today's agenda. We will take a deeper dive into community partnerships. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Launch New York's Emerging Clean Tech Opportunities Incubator 2.0. Following that, I will pass the floor to Dr. Marnie Levine, President and CEO of Launch New York, who will provide a brief overview of our organization. And then you'll hear from our moderator, Jillian Francis of Rapid Ventures, who will introduce our speakers. So we'll conclude with a moderated chat, including questions submitted directly by all of you. So Launch New York's Eco Incubator supports clean tech startups with measurable and scalable impacts on New York State energy efficiency, renewable energy, greenhouse gas reduction, and overall sustainability. We support clients across a wide range of industries, including advanced manufacturing, energy storage, distribution, transportation, and more. This Eco Incubator is supported by NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thank you all once again for joining us today, and thank you to NYSERDA for sponsoring this series. Now I'm honored to introduce you to Launch New York's President and CEO, Dr. Marnie Levine.
Thanks so much, Krista. Just to give you a few brief words about Launch New York, I see there are many familiar faces and names here, but I also see that there are many new folks to Launch New York. So just to give you background, Launch New York is a nonprofit venture development organization with two key pieces of resources that we provide to startups like yourselves, so many of you out there who are founders, both coaching, pro bono mentorship through Entrepreneurs in Residence, as well as seed capital. In fact, Launch New York is the most active seed fund in New York State by volume of transactions. Our newest fund, Limited Partner Fund 2, in fact, about a third of the portfolio is actually in the clean energy space. To date, we have mentored over 1,800 companies across all industry sectors who have accounted for nearly 6,000 jobs in upstate New York. We do serve the 36 westernmost counties, so Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Southern Tier, as well as more recently, we've added the Albany area. Our process is that you can apply online, and in fact, I recommend that as the quickest way to get support. And you'll have a call with our team members who do the onboarding and intake. If you're a clean energy company, there's a place to indicate that as well. So we make sure we have the right folks for you to talk to from day one. We start with mentorship for all companies who apply to us with a goal that you become investment ready for Launch New York's funding, as well as funding from other equity capital providers. You'll hear some of our conversation today in your arena. If you're in clean energy, we also know that non-dilutive sources become very important over time as well as early on. But with that process, we mentor over 400 companies annually. So we encourage you to take a look at our website, launchy.org. We have a brief eligibility questionnaire or survey so you can see whether this seems like a fit for you. And then our onboarding or intake call is a method for you to talk more directly with our team. We do have companies literally pitching us every Thursday. So with that, we are able to then invest capital along the lines of between 100 and 200K typically for our first investment. And with our new fund, we're able to follow on as much as the high six figures for any individual company. These are the programs that we use for funding. We're very unique in the US in the sense that we have multiple funds that are both nonprofit and for-profit. Plus, we actually have an investor network of almost 400 accredited investors that was built through the support for the Emerging Clean Tech Opportunity Incubator because we knew that investors interested in clean tech are geographically distributed far and wide. So with that, we look to help you raise capital, be investment ready, and ultimately we are seeing companies raising 20 times the amount of money that we're actually putting into them from these programs. So I encourage both entrepreneurs and investors who may be interested in our programming to please visit the website, and we'd love to be in touch. And our team members, many are on here today. So if you have any relevant questions for the session, feel free to put those in the chat as well. Thanks all for joining, particularly on a summer day where you could be doing many other things. And I am thrilled to turn this over to my great partner with Rapid Ventures, Jillian Francis, who will be introducing our terrific panelists for today.
Thank you, Marnie. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jillian Francis, Managing Partner and founder of Rapid Ventures, a climate tech acceleration studio helping to bridge the commercialization funding gap for early stage companies with access to dilutive and non-dilutive capital. We also collaborate with early market adopters such as cities, corporations, and other institutions to introduce innovative solutions to underinvested areas, driving decarbonization, economic development, and job creation. We are here today to discuss a critical aspect of the transition to a sustainable future, and that's the role of community partnerships in advancing clean energy goals. This is not about technology innovation, it's really about people, collaboration, and ensuring that the benefits of clean energy reach everyone. I want to establish a shared understanding of what we mean when we talk about community partnerships in the clean tech and climate tech space. Community partnerships are dynamic, they're multifaceted collaborations built on trust, shared objectives, and mutual benefit. And these partnerships are the bridge between ambitious clean energy targets and on-the-ground reality of implementation. They ensure that solutions are not only effective, but also equitable and sustainable for the long term. We are incredibly fortunate to have two distinguished leaders on our panel who amplify different yet complementary approaches to building these crucial community partnerships. First, we have Celisa Baron, CEO and founder of COI Energy. And COI Energy tackles clean energy from the perspective of building efficiency and grid optimization. Their full service digital energy management platform detects and eliminates energy waste in buildings. And this holistic approach to demand management not only helps businesses reduce carbon emissions and protect the electric grid, but also supports equitable access to clean energy for all communities by repurposing excess energy for good. Also joining us is Destiny Knock, the CEO and founder of Peoples Energy Analytics. Peoples Energy Analytics works with diverse range of stakeholders from utility companies, analyzing smart meter data to identifying and assisting at-risk households, to customer assistance allies who craft targeted outreach campaigns, community aid networks, and local community action programs to ensure immediate access to vital support. Their work extends to policy partnerships, where they provide critical affordability analytics to embed equity directly into statewide rate designs. As we move through our discussion today, I encourage us to keep this comprehensive view of community partnerships in mind. How do we build these robust networks to connect innovation with on-the-ground needs, ensuring that clean energy truly serves all communities? I will now turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves and their companies. Then we will go through a series of questions that consist of our questions and audience questions we received prior to the webinar. And then after, I will open it up for live audience questions. I believe I am turning it over to Salisa.
Thank you, Jillian, for the kind introduction, and good afternoon. I had to see what time it was. So COI Energy, as Jillian described, we're a technology company that's really focused on leveraging underutilized energy capacity in buildings. And so it's like, how did Salisa Berrien get into this space? I'm not the typical background or profile of a person being in the clean tech space. So it really started from my origin story, living in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, experiencing energy poverty. And from that journey, it really drove me to a career in energy efficiency. So my passion turned into my purpose, which has now led to an impact, not just locally, but our goal is to make an impact globally. So what I'd like to introduce to everyone today is our excess energy exchange, or what we call E²X. So it's a platform where we're enabling businesses to leverage their underutilized energy capacity. This has never been done anywhere before in the world. So think about it is when you need extra capacity, you can buy capacity when you need it, and you can sell capacity when you don't on this exchange. And it's really more about just sharing. So we're optimizing the performance of the electric grid at the same time as minimizing costs for businesses. And how it works, it's very simple. We're the Uber for energy. You go onto the platform if you're a buyer and you just put in your address, how much capacity you want. It shows up the different types of capacity in your area that's available, from grid power to renewable energy down to battery storage. You select that request, and then we match you with the capacity that you're looking for. So there's many stakeholders that are in the process, and today what we're talking about is just partners that you have within the communities. One of our partners, which is a key partner, are utilities, because they have challenges on the grid where there's constraints on distribution networks. So our solution helps them alleviate that. But also our partners are NGOs and nonprofit organizations that have feet on the ground and energy insecure communities, where we donate a percentage of the savings that businesses generate on our platform to these communities. We call it Kilowatt for Good, where we're giving them equitable access to clean energy resources, like weatherization with like NYCHA and organizations like that. So I'm super proud of my team. We have over 100 years of collective experience in the energy and tech space, and we're really passionate about really driving this energy revolution forward. As I mentioned previously, we are leading in a new category. So we're really working with partners like utilities and tech companies to change the face of energy. And so we all can appreciate and live out a more climate-friendly economy for generations to come. Thank you.
So hi, everybody. My name is Sasinak, and just to give you a quick background on myself, I got into the energy affordability space through getting my lights cut off in grad school. So I was an electrical engineer. That's my undergrad degree. And I was getting a PhD in grad school studying the energy system. And I found myself in a very challenging position because we couldn't afford our electricity bills, which highlighted that knowledge isn't always power in the electricity sense, right? That was a joke, don't worry. More will come. And so, you know, from that, it really changed my whole path to like really research like who can afford energy at this time and who cannot, and what does that mean for our energy transition? So next slide. So at People's Energy Analytics, we are spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. So that is where I develop the algorithms that feed into the company. And our solution is really like a data-driven tool to identify like who's struggling to pay their bills, who's not using enough energy, and essentially like who's using so little energy that they might be at risk of pipe freeze in their home during the winter, or heat stroke and heat illness because they're not using enough air conditioners. So, you know, from that, we have been working on gaining some traction. We've worked with over 4 utilities, and at least in Pittsburgh, our first pilot showed that we doubled the number of assistance enrollments for the target area that we tracked. And that, you know, is just one small piece on our path to try to find those 25 million Americans a year that struggle to pay with their energy bills. Next. So how it works is, you know, we work directly with electric and gas utilities to analyze their smart meter, billing, and weather data. And really, it's about understanding that, like, the government, Energy Information Administration, states that across the US, people tend to set their thermostats within 1 or 2 degrees of each other, which means that if we were all equal, we should see our heating and cooling systems kick on at the same time. But that does not happen. And in my research, which now, of course, is driving the company, we've actually shown that there are some households that wait 7 to 12 degrees longer than high-income households just to turn on their heating and cooling systems, right? And so now that is very pervasive, and it leads to this, you know, big risk. Well, you know, now we're in a heat dome. So, you know, if people don't have air conditioners, they can't afford to buy them, that puts them at a really big health risk during the summer. And previously, utility companies told us that they had no way of knowing whether or not someone actually had an air conditioner in their home. And that's something that we are able to do now with smart meter data analysis. So next. So again, we work with utility companies primarily because that is the data that we do all of our analysis on. But our, you know, work with the community really comes through the customer assistance allies. So people like the low-income housing energy assistance program managers, the ones that are actually trying to go and get people signed up. That's a big one. We also work with partnerships like Dollar Energy Fund that actually gets people signed up to multiple assistance programs, energy efficiency program deployers. And then we also have a lot of policy partnerships. So we've been working with a lot of regulators. And so, you know, in the energy space, the utility regulators are the ones where the utilities have to go to them and ask to get any rate increase approved, right? So if your bill increases, the utility regulators had to approve it. And so typically we are now, you know, partnering with them to say, okay, utilities are gathering all this data. How should they use it to protect their customers? And what actually can be done with this utility data? And so now that we're able to show the regulators that you can use the smart meter data to identify who doesn't have an air conditioner, who's not able to use it, or whose technology is broken, that also provides another avenue for protecting low-income households, or really anyone that's struggling with their energy consumption. Next. So at the end of the day, we're People's Energy Analytics, and you know, we have been looking across the US to try to revolutionize the way that we find people that struggle with energy affordability, and also then connect them to help and assistance.
Great. Thank you both for that overview and on your backgrounds. Very impressive. What I'll do is I do have a set of questions for Salisa, and then I have a set of questions for Destiny, and then I have combined questions. So I'll go through the individual questions just to drill down a little bit more on what you discussed. And Salisa, I'll start with you. What role do community partnerships, perhaps with local governments or community organizations, play in identifying buildings or areas where COI's energy solutions can have the most significant equitable impact?
Yeah, so partnerships are key. We work with, the reason why we've decided to work with utilities and also affiliations, associations, is because they know their customers best. And what we do know, what's happening in the energy space, is that there's an opportunity for customers to really drive down on their energy costs and improve their energy performance. So partnering with a utility, giving them the analytics that they need regarding their customers on where they may be wasting energy or where there's an opportunity for them to give capacity back to the grid is important for not only the utility and being able to have more capacity available where they have constraints on the grid, but it also is for the businesses, because now it's creating an opportunity for them to increase their bottom line or improve their bottom line. And so that's just one partnership that really makes a lot of sense for us. And then local governments as well. When you look at the counties and the cities, it consists of nothing but buildings. And, to get the cities and counties, municipalities on board with their constituents, what it does is it actually helps improve the energy performance in a community. It drives down carbon emissions, and it also helps put money back in the pocket for all those businesses that are just doing the right thing. And then it adds a social aspect to it, where they're able to give back to those communities, to the underserved, because you always hear people say, everybody needs to pull themselves up from their own bootstraps, but if you don't have any boots, you can't pull yourself up. And so partnerships like this actually helps us all elevate our communities and take them to the next level.
Great, thank you. Destiny, yours is a little bit more of the drill down on the diverse range of partners that you have, and how do you approach building trust and aligning objectives with varied stakeholders? We all, or most of us, understand the difficulty in building trust in specifically underserved communities. So, how do you actually approach that, building trust and aligning the objectives from the both sides of, say, the utility and the underserved communities?
I think that for me, one of the biggest things that I feel like helps me build trust is understanding that there's a lot of people in this industry with a lot of knowledge that typically hasn't been valued in the past. And so a lot of times, when I hear of other academics trying to go into the community, they're trying to go directly to the households. And for me, that was not my approach. I went to the community advocates that have been doing this work for years. I mean, these LAHEAP program managers are the first, ones that really get to see these applications. They manage who's in their program. They're trying to advocate for money. They're trying to work on getting policies in place. And I think that that's really helped me, because then I'm learning from them and I'm asking them, okay, at a system level, what's the challenges that you've seen year after year? And it was actually this program manager that told me she couldn't figure out why some people in her energy assistance program use so little energy they might as well be living in Kenya. She said that doesn't make sense for the US. We have so many appliances. And then I was able to connect that to my own lived experience with getting my lights cut off. And then say, okay, well, I think that there's this phenomenon happening. Do you have data that I could access to try to prove this for you? And it was really like a research endeavor that came together based on an issue that she was having and a solution that I could, come up with. And I think that's really led to trust, because, she's like, this is the first time I feel like somebody cares about the issues that I have. And Hallie and I are very close to this day. She sends me pictures of her kids and whatnot. And, you know, that to me is also something that like I've really enjoyed. And even like when I've gone to Massachusetts, for example, they had asked me to come and like help them with their energy affordability targets and how to regulate the utilities to meet those targets. And I asked them, I was like, okay, great guys, what's your definition of affordability? And they didn't have one. And I was like, well, that is going to make it really hard for me to tell you how to reach affordability if we can't even agree on this definition. And so then it became like, okay, let me draft it. And people were kind of like afraid to give me comments at first. Just kind of saying like, you're the academic, you know, and I'm like, no, you guys are the lawyers. You need to make sure that we don't like mess this thing up. I really would love to like hear all of your feedback. Then I got a lot of feedback and it was very hard to integrate it all, but we managed, right? And I think that that is like one of the other ways to like really build trust is like find those people that have been in the community much longer than you. And really, like, they become first your mentors, and then the more that you work together, they eventually become your sponsors. Um, and they will promote the work that you do, and like your work will stand on itself. It's kind of like, you know, looking on Yelp is fine, but if you get like a referral from like your best friend or your mom, you're just like, oh, this person must be good because, you know, my friend probably wouldn't just tell me about anybody. So I think that that helps with the trust, and then always delivering on time. And if you are not going to deliver on time, you need to go back to them and make sure they know exactly how much extra time you need to deliver. Um, I had to tell some people who started working with me at the company that the electricity industry is always on time. You know, like the electrons cannot be messed up. You know, it's always like supply must always equal demand, and the hertz must always be 60. It's like, you know, plus or minus 0.0001. So people in this industry just expect a really high level of on timeness. And utilities have such a long memory that if you mess that up and you are not upfront about it and you're not owning it, like then I think that that can also ruin trust. So really like that that mentality has, I think, served me well.
If I could
Great.
piggyback on
Yeah.
what Destiny just said, Jillian,
Yeah.
like on the trust aspect, I mentioned to you about our energy equity program. And the reason why we have partners is for that very reason. You have to have people with boots on the ground that are serving the communities that you're trying to serve. And being that we're a B2B platform, we don't serve residential, but we're trying to make a positive impact there. So that's why we partner with the NGOs that have the feet on the ground in these communities. Because if Salisa comes in, they're going to be like, why? Like, what are you talking about? And then they're going to think, okay, this is too good to be true. So it's not true. So they'll basically dismiss you when in fact you're trying to give a service, but they don't know you, so they don't trust you. So I just wanted to amplify that point that Destiny was bringing.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. The next question is I'm going to kind of lead us maybe in a different direction. We'll see how this goes. But you know, the both of you are very much committed to social impact, and your businesses are in helping underserved communities. As you try to scale the adoption of your technology or your innovative solution, how do you do it in a way that's very intentional, considerate of, you know, truly sticking to the benefits that will be for the underserved communities, and then also that it's acceptable for ones that maybe are focusing more on the economics in terms of, you know, the profitability of your business. So how do you balance those two? How are you a true social entrepreneur, and maybe you don't consider yourself that, but if you do, like, how do you actually you know, manage both being successful with the technology and going down the path of, you know, being many people like to call venture fundable, because we do have probably some entrepreneurs here that are looking to raise capital and everything, but how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I could take that. So I'm a venture-backed startup, and I can tell you when I first started the company, when I talked about this, you know, energy efficiency philanthropy, investors feel like we're not into like, giving back. We're trying to, get multiples on what we invest in you. So we're out. So I was getting a whole lot of investors like, we're out. And I kept on explaining, no, I'm not taking anything from what you get, investor. This is from the businesses. So every business, how I did my business model is I said, I'm uncovering new revenue streams and savings for businesses that they would not have had if they weren't on my platform. So a part of being on our platform is that you must give at least 1% of your savings, and you pay it forward to what we call KW for good or kilowatt for good. And then that's what goes to these energy insecure communities, helping them with weatherization, energy efficiency upgrades, renewables, and things like that. And so I kept trying to explain that to investors, and they still couldn't get it until the pandemic happened. And so when the pandemic happened and everyone realized that, oh, if that person doesn't wear their mask, I could potentially die.
Right.
So it makes sense that we try to elevate and lift up other communities. But it took that type of metaphor for investors to get that how COI is helping underserved communities. It's not taking anything out of your pocket, but we're elevating everyone at the same time. So when we talk about the energy transition, everyone is a part of it. It's not just a certain group, because if we're going to truly win in this climate disaster that we're currently in, it's going to take all of us. And so it took the pandemic to get that there, but it's been a part of our business model. So every business does 1% of their savings, and they can always do more, and it's tax deductible.
Okay. So for me, I have like a slightly different one, but I'm also venture backed. So we raised 600,000 from venture capital during our pre-seed round and 500,000 from a foundation. And I get the question all the time, why am I not a nonprofit? And the truth of the matter is that one, I would like my business to be sold at some point. So that's just, my own personal preference. But then two, it's like, I had thought about trying to go the policy route, and then I saw Roe v. Wade get repealed, and I was like, maybe not, and then, I was listening to somebody speak, and they said, nobody stopped using paper because printers became too expensive. And I was like, you're right. It's more economical for a business. And so what I need to do is show these utility companies that energy affordability is good for business. Yes, we are a socially driven company because of my own experience with getting my lights cut off, and I don't want that to happen to anyone else. I don't think that it is a fruitful avenue. And so, if we take it back to like how electric utility companies came to be, I mean, that they themselves were a social enterprise. People's lives became better because they had access to electricity. That is why the Sustainable Development Goal 7 is, universal access for all. And so when we started seeing, okay, like 25 million Americans are behind on their bills, 10 million Americans keep their homes at unsafe or unhealthy temperatures. In Arizona, there was like this big study on like how many people died indoors with air conditioners because they could not afford to use them. And so we were like, let's capitalize on this and find the people in the utilities that got into the utilities because they know that this is an essential service that they bring to people. Right. And I believe that's why we already have, 3 big utility companies that have worked with us. We got Duke, Southern Company, and Peoples Natural Gas. And if you don't know Southern Company, it's like an umbrella. It covers Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. Right. And so people were also saying like, Destiny, how'd you get so many red states to like, jump into this energy affordability thing? Like, people just didn't think red states would do it. They thought I would get California first, and that just didn't happen. And so like, with the electric and gas utilities, I do feel like they get a bad rap. Because yes, they are the people that are disconnecting people from service, but they're also the people providing people with service. And I feel like that often gets missed in these discussions. And so for us, it was really about like there are people that want to do their jobs. Like utilities have these customer assistance programs that they often put money into. They have payment plans to help people pay. But when we were going and doing like our, customer interviews to just try to make sure we understood the problem, we found that people have a really hard time getting people signed up to these programs. And I think that there is this huge like stigma where it's like, hey, person X, we think that you are struggling to pay your bills. Would you like to sign up for this program? And then person X was like, I'm not poor. Go away. Right. And that's how the conversation normally goes. That's how it went with me when I got my lights cut off. And it took my dad telling me to go to the food bank, me saying that's for poor people, my dad saying you got your lights cut off, you are poor. And I was like, you know what, you're probably right. And I went to the food bank and I got my life in order. But without that intervention, it's really difficult. And so then that's when we started saying, okay, well, let's work with utility companies to try to change the messaging around this, right? And one of the big things that happened in the energy efficiency space was on your bills, now they say, hey, you're using 30% more energy than all of your neighbors, you should use less. People literally just started using less because they were in this secret competition with their neighbors. And so now with my algorithm, we're able to do that with energy affordability. Hey, 64 of your neighbors are warmer than you in their homes while paying less than you. Would you like to sign up for this program? And I do believe that's why we more than doubled the number of people enrolled for our small test case. And so, they're like showing people that doing social good is good for business is the challenge, right, of any social enterprise. And, wind energy had that too. First, it was like, let's just do it to green the planet. Now they actually have to show that it is a sustainable, profitable business. And so I feel like the challenge isn't necessarily unique to us. It's just that you got to show people that your individual goals of like, making people's lives better and allowing them to heat their homes, but also like the utility maintaining profit is mutually, beneficial. And I feel like for both my company and Salisa's, like, we wouldn't be venture backed if we hadn't actually hit that nerve. So.
Great. Yeah, thank you both for that answer, because even at Rapid Ventures, we hear that a lot. If your focus is on underserved communities or underinvested communities or, demographics, certain demographics, can you make money from that? And I think that's being dispelled now, just to the points that you guys both made. And it's no longer considered, well, the forward thinkers no longer consider it charity. We still have some that think of it as charity, but it should not be thought in that way. And it's a testament to see both of you backed by venture, which proves that there is a business model and a scaling opportunity, as well as making money. Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you this question. So both People's Energy Analytics and COI Energy leverage data and technology to advance clean energy, but you do it from different vantage points. One focusing on household level equity and the other on building efficiency and how that associates. How do you see your two approaches potentially complementing each other in building more equitable and efficient energy, clean energy future? Who wants to go first? Destiny?
Okay. So I think that like one of the big things is I am not like a technology deployer. Like typically I find people that need assistance or new technologies, and then I connect them with people that can actually help facilitate getting them those technologies. And so I think that that could be like one bridge between us. For me with the data, I do think like if we were able to, get the same utility on board, I feel like they would see that, this is really like, a pipeline, right? Where it's like I can identify who needs energy efficient technology, whose building is not up to par for, needing like weatherization, some more insulation, like leaky windows, bad roofs. Those are the things that we find typically when we see like very high bill spending and we look across like, you know, who's not using enough energy during a heat wave or a deep freeze, and then potentially like driving them over to Salisa's company. So I think that, you know, for utilities, they also aren't technology deployers, but they're also not data, you know, like analysts typically. And so I feel like, you know, for us, it's really about like complementing what they're trying to do, but from two different ends of a pipeline.
So from us, the utilities that we've talked to regarding our solution, why it's of value to them is because of the data. Data is definitely king that they don't really have access to. So we're giving some access to behind the meter data in order to help the utilities, you know, optimize and serve their customers better. So you get a customer success piece out of the data as well. And so to Destiny's point on how she serves customers, one of the utilities said, Salisa, we're looking, a part of our mandate is that we need to have services for energy insecure communities. And because you are donating right from your platform and your businesses are doing this, so we can see now what businesses are contributing to it, we can make sure that the communities that are a part of our priorities are getting this funding. Talking to Destiny, and as Destiny and I just recently started talking about what she was doing, I was doing, I'm like, it's a mesh. I mean, because she really serves that side that we don't have visibility into. We serve the side that, you know, we're the business visibility that we're given to the utility. So now there's this end-to-end, you know, visibility that the utility gets all the way down to the consumer.
Great. Yeah, and I think what that also, you know, your comments and the question also shows that there are startup community partnerships too that can be had that can address, you know, some of the challenges that, you know, corporates or utilities and other organizations are facing. So while you're on your journey as a startup, you should also look at how do I leverage what other startups are doing and partner with them. So that kind of community and building those relationships are just as important as directly with the community and those partnerships. So I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'll open it up, see if there's any questions from the audience. But looking ahead, where do you see the greatest potential for innovation in community partnerships to further advance clean energy goals in underserved communities?
Lisa, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I feel the biggest, you said the biggest benefit or value?
The innovation, like what other innovations around community partnerships do you see in the clean energy space? So there's certain partnerships that you're forming now, you know, what, or maybe even open it up to what policies would you like to see in order to help you leverage community partnerships better as you go through your journey?
So when I think of innovation in the clean tech space and also in serving energy insecure communities, I think of organizations like NYSERDA. They are always at the forefront, and they have ponds that come out that you can test on, like any innovation that you come up with, to see how it can best serve whatever the community is that's like a part of the thesis. And so for me, I lean on organizations like that that create pathways for new innovation. You know, there's other entities that do, it's sort of kind of almost like hackathons, but they're not hackathons, where you get to get in the room with the brightest people, and it's a think tank coming up with different ways to really try to serve end to end the communities in order to elevate our economies. So it's really not, you know, a lot of people look at it as stopping at just serving, like, oh, we're helping energy insecure. But if you think about it holistically, it's more really about how do we move our economy forward? How do we drive out inefficiencies? How do we reduce carbon emissions? All those things are important. It doesn't matter what administration's in place in Washington, D.C. or anything. And so having organizations like NYSERDA and others that put innovation at the top and they actually fund it. So it gives everyone an opportunity to test these things out. That's where I see the movement continuing to go. And I think just taking, having leaders that are there leading and being able to capitalize on those opportunities, I think is going to be the future of us getting to that next level with innovation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, the innovation really comes at like bringing multiple types of expertise to the table. So like my background, my undergrad's electrical engineering, applied math. My master's is in leadership for sustainable development. My PhD is in industrial engineering, and now I work in a civil engineering department. And, I feel like in the past, people have been too siloed in whatever their discipline was. And historically, the social sciences have been very undervalued. The humanities, the social workers have been very undervalued in this innovation space. And to me, the best innovations come from problems that people have long overlooked. And I really think that like that's where innovation needs to happen. So maybe it's more of like a change of thinking or a change of like what we value and who we value as experts. To really like tackle like true problems that have been like plaguing the industry for a while. Um, and I've learned so much from, you know, uh, as I mentioned, the LAHEAP program managers, but also like the community advocates where, at first we were just thinking that we would show the utilities like where we needed to deploy more air conditioning units or more heat pumps. But then I started working with natural gas companies, and one person was telling me that she wanted to use my data to show her where she should invest her driving time around her territory to go do in-person events. Right. There were certain pockets that we showed her in the eastern part of Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is, and the southern part of Allegheny County that she just had never done outreach events in because they hadn't, realized that there were high levels of people that were at risk of pipe freeze there. And I am going to do a little tangent to just say something that I do believe needs to happen, just like as we are reframing our thought process of like what it really means to be a successful entrepreneur. Because if we are meant to invest in the community and also innovate, we need to make sure that we have the mental thought process to do this. And I feel like this is something that is not said to entrepreneurs enough, is like, don't be the Elon Musk, Google sleep in the parking lot people. You don't have to do that. You should sleep in your bed and you should get 8 hours, preferably 12 on the weekends. And I feel like, whenever I talk to people, they're always really surprised that like I have a 1-year-old and I hang out with her. And I enjoy hanging out with her in addition to doing this job and this work. And a part of it is like, yes, if I had to give up my child in order to do this company wouldn't exist because you have to value yourself and your family and the person that will be with you even when the world goes crazy, which is my child. You know what I mean? Like, she's my best chance at not sitting on my porch alone when I'm 80 years old. This company, it's not going to sit on the porch with me. It won't want to listen to me talk all day. And so like, that's something that like, I just want to like remind us all about is like, you are the best person to innovate when you have a good night's sleep and you're eating and you eat healthy stuff and you go on walks and you're a nice person. And I feel like, I would just be remiss if I didn't say that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Destiny. That's something that I think we'll bring you back on for another discussion on a larger webinar on that, and just the mental health of entrepreneurs and maybe even of investors as well. And Marnie can sit on that one. So Krista, just in the interest of time, I think we have about 9 more minutes to open it up for audience questions. If you could maybe identify some, that'd be great. Or if we're going to just have folks raise their hand.
Yeah, I would say we raise our hands with questions.
All right.
While we're waiting for that, perhaps I can jump in. Marnie Levine, President and CEO of Launch New York. Celisa and Destiny, thank you so much. I know we have all kinds of founders on here now, wondering how in the world you accomplish so many partnerships. And what I know I'm hearing from you is, I'll just say, salesmanship starts when you first hear the word no. It sounds like you have been, persevering and really creative in figuring out how to actually make the approach. So I'd love to go back to that first entree, that first connection. So many of our founders are wondering, how do they do this? They've developed technologies and products as you have, but how do they do the people side of this with some of these organizations that seem daunting to enter? What entry point? Any tips, suggestions, and your experience of what it was like to actually get in the door the first time?
Yeah, I could say, well, let me just start off by saying COI Energy stands for Circle of Influence. And so for us, it's always been about the people and the organizations around us. And out the gate, I'm an introvert, I'm a mechanical engineer. So I'm not really into talking to people. I do it because I have to. And so it's a learned experience, because it's like, okay, if I'm going to deliver this solution, I need to be able to interact with folks. But what helped me get more comfortable was the accelerators that I would participate in. So like Launch New York, or Morgan Stanley's Innovation Lab, or Google for startups. Those are the communities that I got involved in. And being in those strong communities, number one, it's a bigger network you have now to introduce you to some of these key companies that you want to talk to. So Celisa isn't doing this all by herself. The reason why I'm in these different programs is really because I needed to expand my network, because I wouldn't be able to do this all by myself. And that's how I got access to a Magnificent Seven being a part of my company's pilot program, by being able to sign utilities early on. It's all because of that circle of influence.
It's super powerful. I know, NYSERDA and any of these others, then that gives credibility to what essentially you both are startups approaching these established organizations.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm slightly the opposite, because I'm an extrovert and I love talking to people more than I love coding. I could talk to people literally all day. So for me, it was really about going to the conferences where people are. And once you find your partners, really people don't want to hear you sell stuff. They want to hear that you care about their problem and that you will work with them on a solution to their problem. And then you kind of deal with the money stuff after. And so for me, I literally was just okay, let me just talk to people and oh, what's been challenging for you in this space? Oh yeah, this thing has been challenging for me, getting the data. And that's when Wahoo Program Manager was like, well, I can get the data, right? If my problem is finding people that need help or explaining this or understanding how many people that is, and you can solve that and I can get you the data, let's just partner on that. Now, the first one was not for money. I mean, it was literally okay, let me just try to do this because and that's always the question you have to ask yourself with anytime you're trying to get somebody to give you something, what do you need at this moment in time to get you to your ultimate end goal? And so for me at the time, I needed to show utilities I could scale, and that my problem that I was solving, which is low income households wait very long into the summer to start using their air conditioners, was happening in more than just Arizona, which is where I did my first pilot. And I needed to show them I could scale to 1 million homes. Because that's what everybody kept telling me was oh, well, Arizona's small, we're 1 million homes, you got to be able to do us, right? And so then by by partnering with this program manager where she got me, you know, like 700,000 homes. And I was like, well, that's good enough for me. And we were able to show it for the Mid-Atlantic and Arizona and Chicago. Then we were like, okay, now we can go to regulators across the US and be like, look, all these 3 different climate zones, like, you can't tell me it's not in your climate zone. And so like that like really, really helped. And like that then once I was able to show that across all these climate zones, then the next one was I got People's Gas. Well, I got that one by speaking at this energy summit in Pennsylvania. And the CEO actually approached me after. Mind you, I really should have looked up who this was before, but he like sent me an email asking to meet to talk over some like energy stuff over lunch. And I really thought that it was like, you know, like spam, you know what I mean? But I was like, you know what, let me just go. Like, worst that'll happen is like, I mean, somebody at this public place, but it was really like Mike. And I was like, whoa, Mike actually emailed me. And then he told me on the panel where I was just speaking about like energy usage in homes, that I was the only person on the panel that was technology agnostic. And he was saying in our space, a lot of people don't feel that there's innovation capabilities in the natural gas space. People are very anti-natural gas at this point. But I told him like, look, I am pro people being able to use heat. That is what I am for. Like, I don't care how they're using heat because I just want people to not die of pipe freeze or lack of water, right, in their homes. And so he said that that really resonated with him because most people forget that natural gas is an essential service. And so, you know, really connecting to people's like, you know, heartstrings, why they got invested in these companies. I feel like that is really what helps people like get on board and stay invested.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this is powerful. This is the future of energy distribution, energy access. I love the innovation that's shared here. I love the examples, the fact that we are able to really visualize how each of your companies is forming these partnerships and making it work and showing that you can be profitable and make a difference. That is enormous. And I thank each of our speakers for being here today. I also thank NYSERDA for being here today, for sponsoring this, and for funding innovation, as Celisa mentioned. So thank you all so much. I also want to say we appreciate here at Launch New York all of you, all of the community partners and the investors and those of you who, the mentors who are here making all of this possible and bringing this together. So we are very fortunate to have a strong, experienced community network here. And we invite conversation, reach out anytime and join our community if you're not already actively engaged. And certainly we will be sending out this recording with a link to our other previous webinars as well. So have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Krista.